The President of the United States, Joe Biden, has just pardoned his son, Hunter Biden, a decision that's shaking the nation and sparking intense debates. Was this a father's compassion or an act that undermines justice at the highest level? This isn't just about politics. It's a moment that challenges the core of leadership and morality. Can a leader separate personal loyalty from public duty? And what does this mean for justice when power and family intertwine? Today we'll dive into the moral and ethical storm this decision has unleashed and explore how ancient Stoic wisdom can offer a lens to understand this complex situation. We'll draw on real-world examples of leaders who faced similar dilemmas, from President Gerald Ford's pardon of Richard Nixon to historical lessons from Marcus Aurelius. By the end, you'll see how these decisions, then and now, impact public trust and leadership integrity, and why this story is more than just news. Let's unravel it together. President Joe Biden's recent decision to pardon his son, Hunter Biden, has ignited significant debate across political and public spheres. Hunter Biden faced convictions for making false statements on a gun background check, illegal firearm possession, and federal tax offenses. The president justified the pardon by asserting that his son was selectively and unfairly prosecuted, suggesting political motivations behind the legal actions. This action has drawn criticism from various quarters and raises profound ethical questions about the balance between familial loyalty and the impartial administration of justice. While a father's instinct is to protect his child, a president holds the duty to uphold the law without favoritism. The pardon could be perceived as prioritizing personal relationships over the principle of equal justice, potentially undermining public trust in the legal system. From a Stoic perspective, the decision to pardon one's child would be deeply challenging, as it pits personal love against a commitment to justice and the common good. Here's how a Stoic might approach this moral dilemma. 1. Prioritize the common good. For a Stoic leader, prioritizing the common good means making decisions that benefit society as a whole, even at personal cost. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher, exemplified this approach. As ruler, he often prioritized the needs of his empire over his personal desires. For instance, during the Antonine Plague, he allocated significant resources to aid the afflicted population and maintain public order, even as the crisis brought immense personal and political strain. Similarly, in more recent history, President Jimmy Carter maintained transparency and accountability when his brother, Billy Carter, was involved in controversial dealings with Libya. Jimmy Carter distanced himself from Billy's actions, recognizing that prioritizing the integrity of his office was more important than shielding his brother from public scrutiny. This decision reflected a commitment to the broader good over familial loyalty, preserving trust in his leadership. Another example is Queen Elizabeth I of England, who famously prioritized her country's stability over personal relationships. When faced with conspiracies involving her cousin Mary, Queen of Scots, Elizabeth eventually authorized Mary's execution. While this decision deeply troubled her, Elizabeth recognized that sparing Mary could lead to political instability and civil unrest. She acted in the interest of England's future, even though it pained her as a relative. For Joe Biden, applying this principle would mean considering whether pardoning Hunter serves the nation's best interests. If the act undermines public trust in the justice system, it could compromise the integrity of his presidency and harm the collective well-being. A Stoic would argue that true leadership requires setting aside personal ties when they conflict with the needs of the larger community, ensuring that justice and impartiality remain paramount. 2. Separate emotion from reason. A Stoic leader strives to separate personal emotions from rational decision-making, especially when faced with moral dilemmas. This principle, emphasized by Epictetus, encourages leaders to focus on what is just and reasonable rather than being swayed by feelings of love, fear, or anger. One historical example of this principle in action is Abraham Lincoln's leadership during the Civil War. Lincoln faced intense personal and political pressures when dealing with deserters from the Union Army. While it was emotionally taxing to condemn young soldiers to punishment, Lincoln maintained a rational approach, balancing compassion with the need to maintain discipline and order within his forces. He pardoned some soldiers when it aligned with broader military strategy, but upheld punishments when discipline required it. His ability to put the war effort above personal sentiment helped preserve the Union. Another example is Theodore Roosevelt's handling of corruption cases during his presidency. Roosevelt famously stated, "No man is above the law, and no man is below it." When a prominent political ally, Charles Bonaparte, was implicated in wrongdoing, Roosevelt did not shield him. Instead, he let the law take its course, reinforcing public trust in his administration by showing that even friends were not exempt from justice. For Joe Biden, separating emotion from reason means evaluating Hunter's legal situation without allowing paternal love to cloud judgment. A Stoic would recommend stepping back from the emotional aspects of the decision and asking, what serves justice? What upholds trust in the presidency? While love for a child is natural, a leader's higher duty is to the principles of fairness and impartiality. By choosing reason over emotion, a Stoic leader not only upholds their integrity, but also demonstrates the courage to face personal pain for the sake of a greater moral good. 3. Consider justice as the highest virtue. For a Stoic, justice is the cornerstone of moral action. It demands that decisions be made impartially, without favoritism, and in alignment with what is fair and right. As Marcus Aurelius said, "The universe is change. Our life is what our thoughts make it. But justice is the foundation of everything." Justice transcends personal relationships, requiring that all individuals, regardless of status or connection, be treated equally under the law. A compelling modern example is President Harry Truman's decision to fire General Douglas MacArthur during the Korean War. MacArthur, a highly decorated and celebrated military leader, openly defied Truman's policies, creating a constitutional crisis. Despite the immense backlash and MacArthur's popularity, Truman upheld the principle that no one is above the authority of the presidency. This decision reinforced the rule of law and the primacy of civilian control over the military, even though it cost Truman significant political capital. Another historical instance is U.S. Supreme Court Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes, Jr., who famously upheld decisions that ran counter to his personal beliefs. Holmes dissented in several cases where he sympathized with the litigants, but ruled against them because the law demanded it. His commitment to justice as an objective standard, rather than a reflection of personal preferences, exemplified Stoic impartiality. For Joe Biden, justice as the highest virtue means considering whether pardoning Hunter undermines the very legal system he swore to uphold. If the pardon suggests that some individuals are above accountability due to their connections, it risks eroding public trust in the law. A Stoic would argue that justice requires treating Hunter as any other citizen, demonstrating that integrity and fairness are valued above personal loyalty. By upholding justice, a leader reinforces the credibility of their role, ensuring that their actions serve as a model of fairness and impartiality for the greater good. 4. Accept personal pain for a higher purpose. Stoicism teaches that enduring personal pain is often necessary to uphold virtue and the common good. Seneca wrote, "Sometimes even to live is an act of courage." In leadership, this principle means making difficult decisions that may hurt personally, but serve a greater purpose, such as preserving justice and integrity. One powerful historical example is King Solomon's judgment, a biblical story that illustrates prioritizing fairness over personal attachment. Solomon was faced with two women claiming to be the mother of the same child. To determine the true mother, Solomon proposed splitting the child in two. The real mother revealed herself by sacrificing her claim to save the child's life. This story reflects the Stoic ideal. Sometimes painful sacrifices are required to protect what is right. In modern history, President Dwight Eisenhower faced personal pain when his close friend and mentor General George Marshall was criticized by Senator Joseph McCarthy during the Red Scare. Eisenhower, though privately supportive of Marshall, chose not to publicly defend him because he believed it would escalate tensions and distract from the administration's goals. This decision was a painful sacrifice for Eisenhower, but he deemed it necessary for the greater stability of the nation. For Joe Biden, a Stoic approach would acknowledge the emotional pain of not intervening on Hunter's behalf, while recognizing the greater purpose of maintaining public trust in the justice system. A leader's role often requires enduring the heartbreak of putting principles above personal relationships. By accepting this pain, a Stoic demonstrates courage and commitment to higher virtues, setting an example for others. In such moments, the Stoic would remind themselves that while the pain of sacrificing for justice is temporary, the legacy of integrity and fairness endures, shaping the foundation of trust and moral leadership. 5. Seek the rational middle path. Stoicism values balance and rationality, rejecting extremes in favor of measured, well-reasoned decisions. Epictetus advised, "Make the best use of what is in your power and take the rest as it happens." In a complex situation like pardoning a family member, a Stoic leader would aim to find a solution that upholds both justice and compassion, ensuring the decision aligns with virtue and reason. A relevant example is President Abraham Lincoln's use of pardons during the Civil War. While Lincoln pardoned deserters and soldiers sentenced to death, he did so selectively and strategically, weighing the individual circumstances and broader implications. His clemency was not a blanket approval, but a rational middle path that balanced mercy with the need to maintain military discipline. This approach strengthened his reputation as a fair and compassionate leader who did not compromise on principles. Another example comes from South Africa's Truth and Reconciliation Commission, TRC, established by Nelson Mandela and Archbishop Desmond Tutu. The TRC allowed for amnesty in exchange for full disclosure of political crimes committed during apartheid. While some viewed this as a compromise on justice, the balanced approach fostered national healing and avoided further bloodshed. It was a rational decision that prioritized long-term unity over short-term retribution. For Joe Biden, the rational middle path might involve supporting legal reforms to address perceived injustices, while allowing Hunter's case to proceed through the system without interference. Alternatively, if a pardon is deemed necessary, it could be accompanied by a public acknowledgement of wrongdoing and a commitment to broader justice reforms. This would demonstrate accountability and transparency, balancing compassion for his son with the public's expectation of fairness. By seeking the middle path, a Stoic leader reconciles competing demands, ensuring that their actions reflect reason, integrity, and a commitment to the common good. 6. Focus on intentions, not outcomes. A core tenet of Stoicism is the idea that we can control only our intentions and actions, not the outcomes they produce. Epictetus reminds us we cannot choose our external circumstances, but we can always choose how we respond to them. In the context of a moral dilemma like pardoning a child, a Stoic would focus on ensuring their decision is guided by virtue and reason, regardless of public reaction or unintended consequences. One historical example is Socrates' refusal to escape execution, even when offered the chance by his friends. Socrates believed that fleeing would violate his principles and the laws of Athens, which he had always respected. While the outcome, his death, was tragic, Socrates focused on his intentions to act justly and maintain his integrity, becoming a symbol of moral courage. Similarly, President Gerald Ford's pardon of Richard Nixon after the Watergate scandal was an act guided by Ford's intention to promote national healing, even though it was widely unpopular and may have cost him re-election. Ford later stated, "I knew it would cause controversy, but I felt it was the right thing to do." Despite the backlash, Ford remained steadfast in his belief that his decision served the greater good. For Joe Biden, a Stoic approach would involve acting in accordance with his values of justice, fairness, and compassion, while remaining indifferent to the potential fallout. Whether his decision to pardon Hunter is criticized or praised, a Stoic would remind themselves that their responsibility is to act virtuously, not to control how others interpret or react to their choices. By focusing on intentions rather than outcomes, a Stoic leader avoids being paralyzed by fear of public opinion or regret. Instead, they find peace in knowing their actions were grounded in principles that align with their moral compass. Joe Biden's decision to pardon his son Hunter isn't just a political moment. It's a powerful lens into the challenges of leadership, morality, and the delicate balance between personal loyalty and public duty. From Stoic wisdom to historical precedents, this story forces us to confront tough questions. What does justice really mean when power and family collide? And how would we act in his position? Now it's your turn. What are your thoughts on this decision? Was it an act of compassion or a breach of justice? Share your takeaways and insights in the comments below. I'd love to hear your perspective. If this exploration into leadership and morality resonated with you, make sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more thought-provoking content. Don't forget to share this video with someone who'd enjoy diving into these deep and important conversations. Let's keep the discussion going. Together, we unlock the wisdom that shapes our world.